And we are live here in the Storycraft Cafe. I am your host, Hank Garner. Today, I am super excited to welcome Nicole Baart to the show. She has a brand new book that releases tomorrow, and I've got a copy of it right here on my Kindle. And if I can get the glare out of the way, Where He Left Me. What a fantastic book. This had me on the edge of my seat and wondering what was next. And I know you guys are going to love it. You know, as the weather is changing and we're, about to get into cooler weather. For some reason, we're not yet. But this is a great book to kind of cozy up in your comfortable reading chair and under a blanket and read. It's so much fun. Nicole, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Hank. It's so great to be here.
It's so good to have you. Nicole, I love to start the show with some fun questions to just kind of get things started and to kind of break the ice. One question that I love to ask people is, and I've got what part of writing do you love the most? Is it the first draft? Is it editing? Is it the final polish? Where do you find yourself thriving in the process?
I love the first draft. It is just pure magic to me.
Yeah,
It's the artistic part of it. It's fun to create worlds, and I don't know what's going to happen next. So it's exciting for me too.
I love that. What is the first writing project that you tackled that made you feel like a writer?
Oh, wow. Oh, that's a great question. I've been writing for a really long time.
Yeah,
I've wanted to be a writer since I was 5 years old. But I don't know that I ever really thought of myself as a writer
yeah,
until I wrote an article for the English Journal. I used to be a high school English teacher, and I wrote an article about a unit that I did on poetry, and they published it in the English Journal. And I was so proud. Like I carried that magazine around. Like it made me feel like a real author. Before that, I had just been writing for fun for myself.
I love that.
Mm.
And the final kind of icebreaker question is, do you believe in writer's block? And if you do, what do you do to break it?
Yeah, I have a bit of an unpopular opinion about that. I
I'm
don't.
here for it.
Okay, good. I don't really believe in writer's block. And the reason why is because I have been writing for publication for almost 20 years now. And when you have to write to a deadline, you have to write. Like you don't have a
Yeah.
choice. It's my job. I have to hit my deadlines. I don't have a choice. So what I do when I'm feeling stuck is
Hmm.
I like have a whole list of things. There's maybe 20 different things that I can do. I can redo a character sketch. I can go back to the beginning and read what I've written. I can write a scene out of order. I can write the ending. I can write a scene from the perspective of a different character just to kind of mix things up in my head. And I find that once I start doing something, even if it's bad, and it usually is
Hmm.
really bad, at least I'm writing and that kind of breaks the dam and I can keep going.
Yeah,
So,
because if they're bad words, and we can argue about if they're really bad words, because in my experience, I've felt like, well, I'm just going to get some bad words on the page, and then
yeah,
tomorrow, I can edit those words because you
for
can't
sure.
edit a blank page, but you can. But invariably, I'll go back and look at what I wrote, and it's not as bad as I felt
Yeah.
in the moment. Of course, it needs some polish and maybe some things moved around stuff, but it's never. In hindsight, it's never as bad as you feel like it is when you in the midst of it.
Oh, for sure. And every once in a while, just making yourself do it will shake something loose that's kind of magical.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. You said you were an English teacher. My oldest son is an English teacher, and I have an affinity for English teachers. There's one of my favorite teachers in school was my 11th grade English teacher, Mrs. Harper, and she had a way of changing the way I thought about story and about creativity. And everyone up until then, and this is not a dig at the other teachers. This is just to highlight there was something special about this one teacher. The way I interpreted what they were saying was just I was doing everything wrong, and it was their job to point that out. And
Yeah.
which is probably why a lot of people have a hard time with
Oh,
outlining and plotting, and because they have those fear of that high school English teacher with her red pen. But Mrs. Harper made me think differently about it. And I can't put my finger on one specific thing, but ever since my engagement with her, I have felt like this was something I wanted to pursue, and it took me many years and
Yeah.
all of that. But I say all that to say that most writers have a bit of a circuitous route to come around to novel writing, and a lot of us work day jobs and uh, you know collect some life experience over here, and try our hand at this, and all of that adds tools to our writer toolbox that we can draw from later in life. What was it that helped you transition from your job as a teacher to being a full-time writer?
Yeah. So I felt when I was younger, especially when I was in college, that being a writer was akin to wanting to be, a movie star or a rock star or a football player in the NFL. Like none of
Yeah.
those things were going to ever happen for me. So I thought I will use my love of books and my passion for writing, and I will hopefully inspire kids to love it as much as I do. So that was always my philosophy. We are all readers, we are all writers, even if we only write grocery lists, we're writing, we're using our creativity, right? So yeah, started out teaching. I loved it. It was such a great career. I would go back to it in a heartbeat if I wasn't so busy writing. But I was actually taking a year break from teaching. My
Mhm.
son had just been born and we were living in Canada at the time. And in Canada, you get a year maternity leave. So I had my year mat
Wow.
leave I know it was wonderful. And my
Yeah.
husband got several weeks of paternity leave too. So it was magical. I was able to stay home with my son. And during that time, I started writing and I had the opportunity to get my pages into the hands of an editor. And I obviously jumped at that opportunity. And
Yeah.
she happened to fall in love with my writing and offered me a contract. So I have a bit of a Cinderella story and I feel guilty.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
guilty sharing it sometimes, but it
N
is what it
No,
is.
it's your journey, every one of us is different, and we all have, uh, different challenges, but also different opportunities that come up, so,
Yeah.
everybody's journey is their journey. It is what it is. Do I understand right that you began in the inspirational market?
I did, yes. My first 4 books were with Tyndale House out of Chicago.
Tyndale House. I'm fascinated by that, for a couple of different reasons, but one, um, I have an appreciation uh, for the inspirational market, and for the people that are generating content for that niche, if you will. But the other thing that I'm really fascinated by is authors who pivot a bit, and because we get really in today's market, especially if you start off as a science fiction author, then people will tell you stay in that lane. If that's what people know you for, don't branch out and do anything different, because people won't know where to follow you, and you'll confuse people, and so create 15 different pen names, and publish under that or whatever. So first off, could you talk a little bit about what your experience was writing in the inspirational market, and then how you were able to pivot away from that without losing readers, or getting new readers to discover you over here? Like it's a bit of a goes against the trend, is what I'm trying to say, and I feel like I'm just grasping for words, but hopefully you understand what I'm getting at.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. You're right. It was a huge shift. And actually my writing has shifted a lot over the years, which is also very unusual. So my first 4 books were in the Christian fiction market. My one of them was actually literary fiction. Like it's pretty literary.
Yeah.
And then I moved to a different publishing house. Actually, it was Howard, which is an imprint
Hmm.
of Simon and Schuster.
Right.
And it was kind of their inspirational imprint, so I could kind of sidestep. But I think my books are all they all contain the same elements. Or I should tell you how I got there first. So I sidestepped into Howard, and then from Howard I went to Atria. or I'm now writing domestic suspense.
Yeah.
So from yeah, inspirational to domestic suspense, and then I very slowly sidestepped
Yeah.
there, bit by bit by bit. But I think that
Sidestep or bridge?
yeah, maybe bridge is a better way to
Yeah.
say it. Yeah, so I'm 12 books in now. And they are very different if you read the first one and if you read the one that comes out tomorrow, they're very different books,
Yeah.
obviously. But I think there are some things about my work that people are always going to find to be true, no matter which book they pick up and read. And that is I love a redemptive arc. Like I want there to be some beauty and brokenness there. We're going to have some really messed up characters who have some really terrible things happen to them or who do terrible things, but I want there to be a hope-filled ending, I guess.
Yeah.
So you're always going to find that. And then the other thing that I think is really consistent in my work is I'm not. I don't I love reading a lot of different
Hmm.
genres and a lot of different books, but I'm really uncomfortable writing graphic violence, graphic sex,
Right.
like lots of language and stuff like that. It's just not really me. So
Yeah.
bad things happen to my characters and horrible things, they have terrible experiences, but you're not going to find any of that in my books.
Yeah.
So
One thing, uh, the cozy mystery market, for instance, is a market that, um, a lot of people who have an aversion to the graphic stuff on the page, kind of gravitate toward cozy because you can have all of the story without all of the graphics. It kind of, what's the term they use? It happens off the page or off
oh
camera.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
you know that if if there's a love scene, it's like you have the build up to it and then kind of fade to black, and use your
yeah,
imagination, and or a murder, happens, but they stumble across a dead body and you don't necessarily see all the blood spraying, and all that kind of
yeah,
stuff. So there are ways to tell a compelling story without shocking, so
yeah.
like do you struggle, and I'm very much like you. Like there are, I read all over the place, but if I'm writing, I'm just not going to write all that stuff because it's just not who I am. It's not what I'm comfortable with, and I think there are definitely ways to get the point across. Like are there tricks that you've learned along the way that this is the best way to describe this scene where it carries the same impact without just
Yeah.
offending half your readers?
That's really hard.
Yeah.
I think it's probably different with every book. I would not consider my books cozies in any
Right,
way.
right.
Like
That was
they're
just an example.
yeah,
Yeah,
oh yeah, yeah,
yeah.
totally. Um, I read one time, and I wish I could remember where it was. I could possibly, look it up and give it to you in the comments later if you'd like. But they talked about how when big emotions happen, often we fragment it. Like psychologically,
Mhm.
when something big happens, we fragment it into smaller pieces so that we can handle it. So I really do the same thing in my writing. I take the really big moments and try to distill them down to details. And often those details are more poignant than trying to explain, blow by blow what actually happened to this character, because we're bringing out the emotion, we're inviting the reader into the experience and allowing them to paint the picture in their own head, which is often far more compelling than anything that I could do in 3 pages. They're
Right.
making it up. They're making the book their own as they're reading. So I
Yeah.
guess that's what I try to do.
Did you find the inspirational market confining, stifling? Was there, were there limits that you found there that when you go to the mainstream market, there are more opportunities, a broader audience? Like what is your relationship, if you don't mind talking about it, with writing for that subgenre and then now bringing kind of into the wider open market?
Absolutely. I loved writing for the inspirational market. It
Yeah.
was a wonderful experience filled with beautiful people. And yeah, it was fantastic. It wasn't the right fit for me after a while because it wasn't necessarily the stories that I wanted to tell. Um, Often there will be a phrase used, you're preaching to the choir. I didn't
Yeah.
want to preach to the choir. I wanted to
Right.
tell stories that were accessible to a bigger, broader group of people, I guess, and stories about people who aren't necessarily um, Christians or have a
Mhm.
faith of any kind. Like
Yeah.
they're just people experiencing their lives. So yeah, I feel like I have a bit more freedom kind of writing what I want to. outside of
Understood.
that paradigm. Mhm.
Understood. Your new book, Where He Left Me, is a fantastic premise. We've got a couple of characters who are newlyweds. Well, first, before we really get into the details of this, when you are working on a new book, what is that? I'm fascinated by the moment of creation for an author because at one moment you're not thinking of anything. And then either a character walks onto the stage of your mind and you're like, well, who is she? And what is she up to? And then, a fiance walks up and you're like, wow, what, and you start playing through, all of the what ifs, or maybe you're reading a news article or observing something in the real world and your mind starts playing the what if game. Well, what if this happened and what if that happened? And then you cast that scenario and then all of a sudden in one fashion or another, Where He Left Me exists, and now it's your job as the author to dig that up and excavate it and dust it off and bring it all to life. So what is that first moment of creation like for you?
Yeah. So it's different with every book, as I'm sure
Of
you
course.
know from your own experience. Where He Left Me began on a hiking trail in British Columbia in 2022. I was out with my family. We used to live in BC. My husband is Canadian, and actually, I am too. I'm a dual citizen. But we were there with our kids in the summer, and it happened to be one of those perfect Pacific Northwest days. BC, well, Pacific Southwest, I guess, if it's
Mm,
BC, but really foggy, kind of mist hanging in the trees. We're
mm,
hiking with our raincoats on because it's not raining, but it's so moist in the air that
right.
you know we're precipitation is dropping. So anyway, we cross this abandoned train track, and I'm just so excited about it. I think it's beautiful. I want to take pictures. We're hiking to a waterfall, so my kids and my husband keep going, and I stop and I took a couple of photographs. Well, when I had the perfect photo framed up, I hit, I clicked it. I took this beautiful picture. It's on my socials if you want to see it. As soon as I was done and I lowered the camera, I was sure that I saw somebody on the train tracks in the distance. I was just
Mm,
convinced that somebody was out there in the mist. And, every hair on my body stood on end. I just had this like thin place sort of moment where I thought,
mm,
I don't know, you almost believe in anything when that happens, right? It's
right.
like, did I just see the Sasquatch? Like, what is out here? And, I'm sure it was my brain playing a trick on me, but that seed of an idea, like, what would it be like to be out here on a mountain and realize you're not alone? And that question
Mm.
just wouldn't let me go. And that's where He Left Me came from.
And Uh, is this that post that you're talking about?
Yes, you found it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did. I was feverishly
Yeah.
clicking while you were talking, so I wasn't ignoring you. I was trying to,
No,
um,
that's great. I'm glad that you found it. That's the photo. Yeah. That was
awesome.
taken in 2022 on a hike to, oh boy, Brandywine Falls in BC.
Wow. And I see exactly what you're talking about. That feels like one of those misty, magical moments where anything
Right.
is possible. Yeah, I love that. Whoops, I clicked the wrong button and took you off
That's
the
okay. I'm just delighted that
um,
you found it. That's so cool.
so this happened, a few years ago, you say
Yeah.
2018? Um,
2022. Mhm.
or 2022, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's
Um,
fine.
so you obviously have this moment where it kind of haunting you a little in the back of your mind. This won't let you go. So what's the next step in this discovery process
Yeah.
because yeah, this is a magical moment, but then how does that start unfolding to the story that you're telling us in the new book?
For sure. It takes me about 3 years to write a book. So I'll
Okay.
have that seed of an idea, and then for almost a whole year, I will just be just pulling the strands, thinking
Yeah.
about it. Who is the character? Where does this take place? I'm asking myself the questions. I'm doing character sketches. I'm figuring out where I want to set it. What's it going to look like? And yeah, plotting. I'm a really big plotter now. I never used to
Okay.
be, but it's something I take very seriously now, especially as I'm writing domestic suspense. I feel like you have to have a framework in order
Right.
to have a believable reveal and, the
Yeah.
twists and the turns and the red herrings, and you need all of that. But yeah, I take about a year conceptualizing it. And then once I have a really good idea of what I want to happen, I spend about a year writing it. And then by the time I turn it into my agent and editor, it takes anywhere from a year to 18 months to publish it. So from the first seed of an idea to pub day is about 3 years. And I'm
Wow.
often writing multiple books at the same
I,
time. So I have, yeah,
I
I
was
have
about to
one
say
publishing.
with the amount of output that you've had, you can't just take 3 years and not work on anything else. So how do you
Yeah.
juggle that? Like you have a project that you're actively writing on, but you have this side project where you're just kind of letting your subconscious mind kind of, untangle knots and things like that.
Yes. Have you seen the meme where this woman is holding her boyfriend's arm, but she's looking over her shoulder at another guy? It's this classic meme. That's kind of
Right.
me. Like my work in progress is my boyfriend, but I have this other idea that's behind me. So right now I'm publishing Where He Left Me. That's coming out tomorrow. But I was just on a phone call with my agent today about my book proposal that will go into my editor before the end of the week. Hopefully by Wednesday or Thursday this week, she'll have it in her inbox. And that already has 60 pages written of it. And the
Nice.
whole outline is done. Like I'm ready to go. If I get a green light, I'll start writing it tomorrow. And then I also have an idea for my next book that's just starting to develop. I'm thinking about it a little bit, but that's kind of what that process looks like. I have kind of three projects on the go at all times.
Gotcha. Um, Knowing kind of the genesis of this project, it feels like atmosphere and setting are extremely important to your writing process. Reading the book, the the atmosphere that you drop us into definitely feels. You've heard people use the phrase like setting as characters, like almost
Mhm.
the setting is like a character in the story. A bit like that. Like it feels like this was very intentional and that you are dropping us into a very specific place and time. Like how do you start thinking about that? Like at what point in your plotting process do you start thinking about how you're going to describe the setting and the mood and the feelings that you're going to try to get across to the reader?
Oh, I am deeply connected to the natural world, as I know a lot of people are. Like, outside is my place to be. I'm a gardener. I have plants all over my home. We hike. We love to be outside. We love to camp. We're always outdoors. So for me, the setting is absolutely a character. It is such an integral part of any story. And I like to set my books in places that I love and that I'm passionate about. So my first several books are set in the Midwest. I live in Iowa, and I feel like sometimes in the Midwest we get overlooked. We're flyover country. Everybody's
Right.
interested in the coasts or the mountains, and the South. There's beautiful things happening everywhere. But I loved in the beginning to draw attention back to the Midwest and the
Yeah.
prairies and big sky. Like there's just something really beautiful about where I live. But I've written 11 books now set in the Midwest, and I was so ready to go somewhere else. So when we
Yeah.
lived in British Columbia, we lived on 19 acres in a farmhouse, and this was my backyard. Like it's what I
Wow.
what I grew up with, or not grew up with, but spent 6 years living in and
Yeah.
absolutely loved. So to be able to go back and revisit that and highlight it has been so much fun.
I love it. I love it. So tell me about the characters that you cast the story with, because you have this moment in the woods there. It's all misty. There's maybe a person on the tracks. We don't know. How does that translate to this newlywed couple and the mystery that unfolds?
Yeah. So I just
I'm
start
trying to
picking.
lob
No,
softballs at you,
that's
like
great. I love
you
it.
know.
You're fantastic. Um, for me, I wanted to write about somebody that I'm interested in and that I would like to spend time with because I have to spend a lot of time with these characters.
Sure.
And if I don't like them, if I'm not excited about who they are, it is drudge work for me, and it's for my readers too. So I feel like a lot of books nowadays focus on 20 somethings and 30
Mhm.
somethings. Everybody's young and their life is ahead of them. And we have this feeling that over the age of 40, there's just not a whole lot to life there. So I
Right.
very intentionally made my characters in their 40s in this book and in love and married for the very first time because why not? Like we don't have to get married
Why
in our
not?
20s to have, why
Right.
not? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's this, yeah, really sweet, I think, love story between these two characters, and they get married. They're married for less than a year when he goes missing, and yeah, it was really fun to cast older characters in this book and spend time with them.
So did you immediately start thinking that the person that you might have seen on the tracks could be Felix? Like how did these
Yeah.
connect?
Yeah, I knew I wanted there to be a threat. There had to be something out there. And yeah, I don't want to give anything away because my desire is that when people read the book, they're like, oh my goodness, who is this? And then the reveal is unexpected. But
Right.
it surprised me because when I was out on, thinking about being out on the mountain, who would be out there? Would it be a murderer? Would it be a kidnapper? Would it be, some crazy person who's off living in the woods by themselves? And yeah, it when it goes in a direction that people probably aren't expecting, which I hope is exciting.
Yeah. Um, you purposefully cast the couple as a couple in their 40s, and they've had some life experience, but they're discovering true love for the first time, and and we get this kind of whirlwind romance that goes a little sideways. W Tell me about developing the characters of Sadie and Felix. Like, they're older than a lot of people we see in this type of story. What else did you kind of discover about them, and when you were kind of uncovering them and starting to write about them?
Yeah, they're both professors. Felix is a professor of planetary sciences, and he also works as a researcher for NASA. And Sadie is a college English professor. And you're supposed to not write about yourself, but there's a little bit of me and Sadie because I taught for so many years, and now I'm back at the point of really wanting to do that. But I don't have my master's degree, so I can't teach at a college level, which I wish that I could do. So
Yeah.
Sadie kind of had the opportunity to do that for me. Um, it was really fun to take to academics and put them, they're both highly educated. They both work in a university situation, and yet I've thrown them into a situation where they have to use their wits to survive. And they're out on this mountain. Like their book smarts aren't going to help them very much when there's a winter storm bearing down and when they find out that they're not alone on the mountain. So I loved the juxtaposition of who they are and then the threat that they face. Like they're not the same thing. And
Yeah.
you would expect there to be, some outdoorsy lumberjack guy in this book and, a woman who grew up on the mountain. And that's just not the case. Sadie's very uncomfortable there. She's a Midwestern girl born in Milwaukee who lived in Iowa. And she's like, a mountain? Are you kidding me? No, this is crazy. So it was really fun to throw them into that
Yeah.
unexpected circumstance.
You talked a few minutes ago about the planning process and discovering clues and red herrings and twist and misdirection and all of the things that you need for a book like this. Um, when you begin to plan out the book, are you thinking in terms of how you are going to mislead the reader? Are you thinking like I'll just my experience is I always know how a book's going to open and I always know how it's going to end. Now connecting those two, can be all over the place, and there's
Yeah.
lots of chance for left turns and right turns and misdirection and all of that. Um, do you think in those terms, or are you thinking about how you're going to keep the reader on their toes? What do you start when you're kind of scaffolding the story? What are the big elements that you're looking for?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you that I'm not as smart as I thought I was because when I wrote Everything We Didn't Say,
Mm.
my book that came out actually November 4 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, when that book, it's basically the same timeline, so that's kind of exciting. But when that book came out, I before it came out, I had rewritten it 3 times. So I
Mm.
knew the beginning and I knew the end, and I knew that I wanted to write a domestic suspense that had a bit of a thriller edge to it. It's a mystery. And I started writing, wrote the whole book, got to the end, handed it in to my editor, and within a month, she came back to me and said, "We need to get an extension. This book needs to be redone." And
Oh,
I know, it was so painful, but it was so necessary. She was right. She was exactly right. And I took 6 months and I rewrote the book, deleting about 70,000 words, rewriting it, handed it in again, and the the message I got back was better, but like it's better than it was before, but it needs more work. and I rewrote it again. I probably only like 30,000 words, 30 to 35,000 the second time around. But I had to write the book 3 times to get to where I needed to be. And it wasn't until the third iteration that I finally realized my culprit, the person who committed this terrible crime and killed 2 people, was not the person that I had written into the book twice. Like, I thought I knew who the killer was. I did not. And it wasn't until that third writing that I finally figured it out. Well, since then, I have become a very avid plotter. I'm really careful about, I need to know more than just the beginning and the end. I need to know the major beats. Like, what are at least 5 things that are going to happen in the book that I'm going to write to? So, my inciting incident happens, and then what? And then what? And then what? And I keep asking myself the question, and then what? And if I can't answer, and then what? I have a bit of a problem because how on earth am I going to convince my readers that this holds together, that this story makes sense? And I do want red herrings. I want them to be misdirected and thrown in the wrong direction and, have a different understanding of where they think the book is going. So, yeah, I work really hard at that.
I love the idea of the and then what.
Yeah.
But I definitely, my brain works that way. I don't really like the idea of meticulous planning, but also it needs to make sense. Like
Yeah.
the journey I'm taking the reader on needs to be believable, and if you can't connect all the dots along the way, then you're gonna break the reader's experience. So I love that.
Yeah. You know what? And I like you saying the dots to connect the dots along the way. I don't plot out everything that happens in my book. I
Yeah,
just have a couple major dots that I know if I get from this dot to this dot, yeah, we're going to be okay. And what happens
yeah,
in between often surprises me and will take the book in a different direction, and that's fine. Like, I have
yeah.
a lot of grace for a changed plot, but I'd like to know
Oh
where I'm
yeah.
going.
Yeah. Well, I think as the writer community, we put too much emphasis on putting people in one camp or the other, when
Yeah.
really it's a continuum that we exist on. And if the far left are the hardcore pantsers and the far right are the hardcore planners, I'm probably just over the line into
Yeah.
the pantser side. Yeah, like I need to know where I'm going. But like you said, the distance between the dots is where the magic happens. That's where you
Yeah.
can be creative and you don't have to feel stifled. Like, why can't everybody just think like me? I don't get
Right? We have it figured out.
it. Right. Well, Where He Left Me is out tomorrow everywhere. Go grab it at your local bookstore. If you don't have a great local bookstore, we'll put links to it in the show notes where you can grab it from Amazon. Um, I haven't heard the audiobook yet. Have you heard any of the audio production yet?
No, I haven't heard any of it. And the funny thing is people are starting to tag me in
Mm,
audiobook reviews online. So I know that it's out there. I know that they're listening, but I think it drops tomorrow with the book. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I'm I may get the audio and listen to it again just so I can experience
Oh,
it in a different way. But go grab the book. It debuts tomorrow. Nicole Baart, if people are just discovering you, want to dig into your great back catalog and follow along for news of what's coming next, where's the best place to find you online?
well, I probably spend the most time on Instagram, and that's just Nicole Bart. That's my handle, my tag, whatever they call it. But I'm on Facebook, I'm on Threads. I have a Substack. My Substack doesn't have a whole lot to do with my writing. It's about small town life and, yeah, just kind of my musings on things. But it's called This Stays Here, and I love connecting with readers there too.
Love it. We'll link up all that to make it easier for
Thank
folks to
you.
find you. Nicole, thank you so much for taking time to come on the show.
Oh, it was a delight. Hank. Thank you for having me.